Hello everyone. For this week, Parshas Vayera, I want to do something a little bit different. I would like to share a story that I was zeicha to witness with my own eyes, which is very connected to this week's Parsha, and to connect it to a more general idea, also from this week's Parsha, which is very relevant to the times we live in, especially here in America and the West, and to hopefully draw koiches, clarity and strength from the story and the Divrei Torah. In this week's Parsha, Avraham at 100 years old has a kid. Now, it was said already in last week's Parsha, Avraham left home at 75 to go follow God, and he never had any child. In fact, it hints in last week's Parsha, as Rashi points out, that naturally speaking, Avraham was never able to have a child. When Hashem told him, I'm going to give this land to your descendants, he says, or Hashem told him he's going to be Scharcha Harbe Ma'od, you're going to have much reward. Avram said, but who's going to inherit it? I don't have a child. And Hashem said, I'm going to give you a child. Vayetze Oisei HaChutza. Hashem took Avram outside. Rashi says, what does that mean? It means Hashem took him outside of the stars, telling him, Avraham, stop stargazing. I know you looked at nature and the forces of nature and you see that you can't have a kid. Avram, your name now, can't have a kid, but Avraham will have a kid. When you leave your nature, your connection with me, says Hashem, is above nature. Nature seems to say it's impossible. Well, there's a new channel of you that we could access, that in the relationship of Avraham and Hashem, we're not bound by nature, and therefore you could have a child, and at 100 years old, in this week's Parsha, Avraham and Sarah have their first child. Now, this is a story that happened with, I got permission to share the story with a good friend of mine, Mendy and Adele Brisky. They have been married for almost 10 years. They have never been zeicha to a child. In fact, they were going from doctor to doctor, and as the years were going, slowly but surely, the doctors were giving up hope. Mendy shared with me that one doctor, one of the top ones in America, told him that there's pretty much zero chances. He didn't say exactly there's zero chances, but he said there's pretty much zero chances. And the next doctor they went to, who was even more esteemed, said it's not happening. Zero chances. My friend Mendy said he was more involved in medically knowing what's going on. And this was crushing news, obviously. When he saw those emails, he refused to believe it, and he deleted the emails. His wife, he said, had the emunah of a child, simple emunah. Children come from Hashem, and if Hashem wants, He'll give us a child, and we just need to believe in Him. Yet the doctors were saying it's impossible. The doctors were even telling him that you're not being nice to yourselves by still believing this is going to happen, because it's just giving yourselves false hopes. Anyways, we've been speaking, we've been farbringing, we learned some about betachin, about trusting in Hashem. I remember telling him last year, at some point, whenever it's going to happen, I'm going to fly into the bris, if it's a boy, if it's a girl, for the party, for the kiddush. And lo and behold, to make a long story short, this past, right before Yom Kippur, this past Tishrei, they were zeicha to have their first child. And one of the most moving moments in my life was watching that bris of just sheer gratitude to Hashem. Like, nature said this can't happen, and it happened. And everyone, it must have been 300-400 people over there, just a complete attitude of gratitude. Thank you, Hashem. And you did something that is completely above Teva. One doctor over there, Mendy shared with me, who is a secular doctor or Jewish affiliated, traditional but non-religious, said from this story, he's taking on two achlotas, two resolutions. One of them is to start wearing a yarmulke every day, and one of them is to never tell a Jewish couple to give up hope. Because he saw over here, it wasn't meant to happen, and it happened. And we are not bound by what the doctors say, and we are not bound by nature. That is a glaring takeaway from the simple reading of this week's Parsha. Now, obviously this is a lesson that is always generally connected with us, but there's another lesson we could draw from this week's Parsha, which has very much to do with the times we live in now. Lot moved to Sodom. And there's one of the most rare notes in the Torah, cantillations in the Torah, is the Shalsheles. We spoke about this once, which is it looks like a lightning bolt, and it's read in this week's Parsha when Lot was told to leave Sodom because Sodom was going to be destroyed, and the angels came to save Lot and to take him out of Sodom. It says Vayisma Hama, which means that he hesitated. And the reading, it looks like this, and it sounds like that as well. Vayisma a big lightning bolt. The light hesitated before leaving Sodom. And as we've spoken about in the past, what does this lightning bolt represent? It represents not only a identity crisis or a cognitive dissonance, being pulled in two directions and not sure how to work it out. So it wasn't just a technical vayismama that light hesitated, but it was a existential vayismama, and he hesitated deeply, not just technically. What was the hesitation? Light was part of Avram's family. He was part of the Jewish shtetl, the Jewish way of life. And him and Avram separated ways. He found the beautiful city of Sodom, and he said, I'm going to become one of those people. And he thought he integrated and assimilated beautifully into the land. Yet, what happened? In a moment of truth, the Sodomites told him, even once they put him into positions of authority and glory, they said, Ha'ish ba logur, this man is a foreigner. What's he doing over here? He's telling us what to do. He's bringing in guests as if he's going to make the policies over here, as if he's really one of us. We all know you're not one of us. And that brought light to an existential crisis. He thought he left Avram's family. He's no longer a member of Avram. He's now a member of Sodom society. Yet he sees, in a moment of truth, Sodom society gives up on him. And at this point, he needs to reinvent himself or re-question, who am I? Am I a man of Sodom or am I a man of Avram? And is given a brute reality check from where he needs to make his choice, and ultimately he saves his life and leaves Sodom. We live in a time now, which going back from October 7th a few years ago till now, how even in the cultured Western countries, anti-Semitism and Jew hate, or just viewing us differently and not as accepted and different as everyone else, is on the rise in every country. And it was on the American left. And recently, even the American right, who have had the Jews back, staunch Israel supporters, are now becoming also, well, anti-Semitism is famously on the rise over there as well. And sometimes it makes us wonder, so who has our back? And it brings this vayismama, and it reminds us that ultimately a Jew's place is not in Golus. Yes, America is comfortable, yes, these countries are comfortable, but in a moment of truth, we are reminded that we are not assimilated beings and just another American. We are not just another card-carrying member of the countries we live. We are Jewish. And sometimes it takes the anti-Semites to remind us the Golus is not the ultimate home of a Jew. And we are ultimately waiting for the Geula Shlema, for Mashiach to redeem us. And part of the Mashiach reality coming into existence is when we got uncomfortable in Golus and actually demand that things change, that Mashiach comes. And it's very hard, because as we're in a successful, nice, warm Medina Shel Chesed, nice country, warm country, it's hard to always remember how we want things to change. Change is vulnerable. Change is hard. But sometimes we have that moment of vayismama, all those places where we think we belong. And we're reminded, ha'ish ba logur, we just happen to live here. But maybe this is not our true reality and our true home. Now this could be a somber realization, because now what? What do we do when everyone's turning against us? When everyone abandons us, and when everyone just views the Jew as the source of all problems? However, then we go back to the original lesson that we spoke about today. Tzei me'istagninus shelcha. Go out of your stargazing. We are not bound by nature. So even when nature turns against us, we just need to remember to not put our trust, put all our eggs in that basket. We are not bound by nature. When we try being bound by nature and try just being comfortable in nature, it never works. It never works in the long term, because a Jew is essentially above nature. We see that in Avram, the whole continuum of our people, going from Avram's child Yitzchak, came about through a miracle, when doctors said it's impossible. So now what's going to be? What's going to be? What's going to be in this country? What's going to be in that country? What's going to be when everyone's standing against Israel? Maybe we take our trust away from the world and we place our trust in Hashem. We leave our stargazing, we leave our wondering what's going to be. And that's not a way of disassociating, of like, okay, whatever, there's nothing we could do about it anyways. It's a way of reassociating, not disassociating. It's not saying, okay, what can we do about this? It's reassociating and saying, God, we trust you, because that's been the story of our history. That's how we came into this world to begin with. And we know you're going to take care of us. And just as Avram needed to change his name, add a letter, go from Avram to Avraham, and as Chassidus explains, that means he also had to make some character changes, because for God to change nature, sometimes that demands that we change our own nature. So the best thing we could do is to work on changing our own nature and redeeming ourselves, redeeming our own godly spark, which ultimately redeems the godly sparks found in the entire world. And we get to witness open miracles, and may we continue to see open miracles. I've bared witness, as we just shared, to literally open miracles which still happen in our times, as things even look bleak. So God has our back, and we could be calm, and we could be happy, and we could flourish and find belonging in that relationship with Hashem. Find less belonging in Golos, which is our fake home, and find more belonging in Torah, mitzvahs, and God, who is our real home. Have a great Shabbos.